My wife cheated on me 2 years ago and we worked through it. Now I want to leave and I feel guilty. So just over 2 years ago, my wife cheated on me with a coworker at her work's Christmas party out of town. She told me immediately the morning after. To say I was devastated would be an understatement. This happened pretty much immediately prior to our country going into lockdown, so we were stuck together. I was in a bit of a daze at the time and just kind of went through the motions. I was angry and miserable, but also wanted to understand why she would do it. Hence it made sense to work through it at the time, seeing as we were seemingly stuck together. To her credit though, she did everything possible to make it right. She quit her job, cut off all contact with the coworker, offered to go to therapy and counseling, and even admitted to what she did publicly. I never asked her to do this, and her mother and sister were very close to her and were appalled. She became much more loving and considerate, and even offered to let me sleep with someone else. I was actually upset with this suggestion, but she was saying it only out of desperation. Fast forward to now, 2 years later, and by all accounts, things feel like they're going back to normal again. At least for her. She is no longer moping around the house, stepping on eggshells in conversation, breaking down when anything regarding cheating happens. She started crying while we were watching a soap where a wife cheats on her husband. Unfortunately, I feel like this return to normalcy has reopened the wound. I think about that night more these days than I did during the previous 2 years. I don't know why, but I think that society returning to a bit of pre-2020 state has made me feel like I've gone back in time to that evening. I can't stand to look at her anymore. Not in a "she disgusts me" way, but in more of a "why are you still even here" kind of way. I feel guilty for wanting to leave now after all the work that she put in, even though logically I know I shouldn't. I feel like I'm the bad guy for wanting to end the marriage after the work she has put in. I know people will be able to easily say that she made her bed, etc., but I'm still really struggling with the idea of leaving her for her sake. I don't hate her for it, but I don't think I love her anymore, and I know this will destroy her. Part of me wishes I was strong enough to have left when it happened. Anyone been in a similar situation or have any advice? Thanks in advance. You can't help feel the way you feel. Her effort to make things right is completely admirable, but ultimately a relationship is two people and two sets of feelings. Staying for her sake helps no one. She will sense when you were there for the wrong reasons, and it will cause a brand new set of issues. If you don't love her, then leave. It will hurt in the beginning, but if you don't hate her, then you wouldn't want her to be deprived of love, and you deserve to be in a place where you trust and love fearlessly. Staying for the sake of never works in a good way. Be kind in the break, but don't stay for some misguided idea that you're a knight in shining armor. You will both survive and thrive. And OP says, thank you for the response. This has helped. And for what it's worth, calling it quits at this point doesn't mean that either of you have wasted the last 2 years. You have both clearly done a lot of work on yourselves, and that is great. Just because you were incompatible doesn't mean that you failed. You deserve to be happy. I have never worked through cheating. I was never strong enough to do that. I have always been the type to believe that if they cheat on you once, and you go back, they know they can get away with it. It's really not hard to stay faithful. Whenever I'm seeing someone, I just make sure that I bring them up when I'm talking to the opposite sex. That's usually enough to get them not to flirt with you. And OP says, this is how I feel too. She has gone to massive lengths to prove that she is remorseful, but now, after all this time, I just feel none of this would have mattered had she just not screwed up in the first place. It's like I'm almost angry at her that I stayed with her, which isn't her fault. I should have left immediately, and I kick myself for not doing so. This is why cheating is a deal breaker for so many people. Getting past the betrayal is almost impossible, even if you try, and the breakup would be the consequence of her actions. A lot of people find themselves in your situation. They don't immediately leave because they've been blindsided and everything is too much to process. But once they come to terms with the betrayal, they can no longer look past it. Don't see the last 2 years as wasted. If you had left that night, you may still have been suffering from the trauma of betrayal. You've had a chance to work through it, seen her remorse, and fallen out of love with her organically. It will be difficult for her. She has done all the right things since she cheated, but reconciliation is never guaranteed. It will be better for her too for you to split before true resentment sets in. And OP says, "Thanks, I appreciate the response. While I'm glad that I tried to make it work, I almost feel like I've led her on by staying. It's not logical, I know, but I'm glad to hear so many people validate me that I don't have to feel bad if I leave, even now, years later." And now, on to the update. Thanks to everyone who commented on my previous post. I was surprised how much people cared about my benign marriage problems, but it helped me a lot. I checked this account out today to see what the responses were since last week, and was taken aback by the number of people who wanted an update. The day after I posted, I talked to my wife and laid out my feelings. I mentioned some of the points that people on my previous post had articulated very well that resonated with me. I told her whilst I had forgiven her, I was struggling to forget what happened, and the fact that we were seemingly going back to normal had triggered something in me, and now I couldn't stop thinking about it. I said that whilst I do appreciate all the work she put in to try and save our marriage, I couldn't continue anymore. I mentioned a point that someone on my previous post said, that whilst we were in lockdown, it almost felt easier to just ignore the issue to some degree, as I would always know where she was or what she was doing. But recently, for the first time since it happened, she's going into town and visiting friends, and my mind is just running at 100 miles per hour while she's out. Who is she with? Why is she slightly late home, etc.? And I haven't had to confront these feelings before. She cried, I cried. She begged me to stay, I cried again. We spent what felt like hours just sitting together in the living room, not speaking at points. She asked the same questions multiple times. Do I still love her? Will we ever see each other again? Is there anything we can try to make this work? And I think eventually she was doing it to delay the inevitable. She is now staying at her mum's house, and I'm going to file for divorce. I know it's easy to lay all the blame at her feet when you are the one outside looking in, but I feel just as bad today as I did the day that I found out what happened. I am heartbroken again, and I know full well I'm going to question myself if I've made the right choice. You can tell me it is the right choice all you like. There is no way that I'll ever be sure that this was the right choice. There are no winners with this crap. Everyone is miserable, everything sucks, and I'm here reliving the most painful experience of my life for the benefit of a bunch of internet strangers who probably only want to read about the drama and have no reason to care about me personally. I don't mean to come across as bitter. I had lots of genuine supportive comments on my previous post. I'm just really struggling right now. I won't be using this account or responding here again after this post, thanks to everyone who commented on my previous post. TLDR, wife cheated 2 years ago, originally worked through it, but now I've decided to end the marriage. Everybody loses. And now in the comments, sorry you were going through this, buddy. I truly hope you find happiness with someone else in the future. I went through something similar. You did the right thing, as difficult as it will be. I'm glad you updated us, and I'm wishing you healing on your journey. Gosh, I wish people understood the pain that comes with cheating. Not just the pain, the loss. Because the loss keeps the pain around on both sides. Unfortunately, it's very rare that cheaters show any kind of remorse. Usually that kind of behavior comes with a usually covert sense of entitlement. The situation with this guy and his wife was probably the best case circumstance, and honestly, it still sucks terribly for both parties. I just hope his days to come, once the weight of it all is off, are better. Sounds like she did everything she could to build their relationship back, but I can't blame him for his decision. It's hard to stay in a relationship when the trust is gone. Sadly too, it's just a hard switch in some people. They just cannot feel the same way about the person. No amount of work sometimes. Exactly. No amount of work would really fix it, and it's really not worth trying to fix at that point. And honestly, I think there is maturity in OP deciding to end it when he realizes that he just doesn't trust her. He mentioned that when she goes to town or out with friends, his brain goes into overdrive, thinking about where she is and what she's doing, and since he obviously felt so bad about it, he probably could have started setting stipulations or check-ins or whatever, and she would do it. Instead, he recognized that the trust just wasn't there and decided to leave instead. I think couples can move on after infidelity, especially when they confess immediately versus getting caught, but it requires buy-in from both parties. The cheating one needs to build trust back up, but eventually the cheated-on partner has to decide if they actually trust them again and then move forward from there. Phone and location monitoring makes sense, but to me that's short-term and not sustainable for the rest of the relationship. Eventually, you just have to decide if you can trust them to go on business trips, have nights with their friends, etc., without extensive monitoring. If you can't after years, then I don't think the relationship can survive. It's not fair to either party, and it's best just to go separate ways. Trusting my partner is very important to me. If I'm in a situation where monitoring her phone and location makes sense, even if it's only short term, then it's already over. Relationships should be a partnership. If you can't stand on equal footing and need to monitor your partner, then it's not really a partnership anymore. The dynamic is broken. Then you have to ask yourself if this relationship can still really ever provide what you need from a partner again. If not, it's best to end things. My husband is lying about working late. So I am 32 female, my husband of 5 years is 37 male. Since early 2020, he got a promotion. He told me one of the responsibilities of this promotion was that he had to work until 9:30 p.m. every Friday. He told me it was to oversee the finalization of all the work they had done that week. He told me that it wasn't just him, it was also one of his co-workers, Glenn, and some other people. Glenn is in his 60s, and I've met him a handful of times pre-2020, but him and his wife don't go out much. I just happened to run into Glenn's wife at the supermarket. I barely recognized her, but she called out my name first and we began talking. She was saying she was finally beginning to feel comfortable going out again and how her and Glenn had begun to take cooking classes, so she was at the store getting something for their class tonight. I was confused and asked if Glenn was getting out early tonight since my husband never gets out early. He always comes home at 10 o'clock on the dot. She said no. They were going after he came home from work. I was like, wow, you guys are night owls. She looked confused and was like, well, it's over by 7:30. So I asked her what about Glenn working late on Fridays, and she was so confused and was like, he's never worked late on Fridays. So it was pretty awkward, and I just told her to enjoy her class and left. I know he said it's Glenn he's working late with. He talks about it all the time. After everyone left, me and Glenn got X for dinner. Glenn complained about how tired he was the whole time, etc. He normally comes home at 5:30. His phone is always off at work, so when I tried to call him, it went right to voicemail. His direct office phone just rings, and the actual company line I can't reach anymore because it's after hours. I don't know what to do until he gets home. I know I need to confront him. I'm terrified of what he's going to say. And now in the comments, I don't have any specific advice other than confronting him about this 2-year ongoing lie. Also, I am now emotionally invested in this and want to know what happens after you talk to him. I'd go outside his work, see if his car is there, for the next few Fridays. If he leaves, follow. Do some investigating. Ask him about his evening at work. Make him seem like all is well. He'll end up mentioning Glenn at some point, but try to avoid asking him about Glenn directly, or he could suspect you may know. Once he's spun a web of lies about Glenn and him working together, you then tell him that you met Glenn's wife, and she told you he's never worked late. Watch him try to lie his way out of that one. And don't give him too much info. Let him talk. They generally get uncomfortable with his silence and talk themselves into a hole. I'm a super patient person, so I would investigate. Go to his work on Fridays, sit in the parking lot, maybe follow if he leaves. I'd take pictures. Dig into financials and calls and anything else you can think of. If anything is going on, I'd compile it all and give it to him with some divorce papers. If you aren't patient, you straight up tell him what happened. I'd probably just tell him I saw Glenn and he said he never works late with you. Don't even believe him when he says it's another Glenn. Pack your crap and go until he decides to tell you the truth. Maybe it isn't something as bad as you think. Maybe he's taking classes or something. Either way, you have got to find out and then let us know what happened. And now, on to the update. I confronted my husband when he got home at 10 p.m. on the dot on Friday. I told him I knew he was lying about working late. He tried to deny it until I told him I had spoken to Glenn's wife. He then tried to say that Glenn had stopped working late recently, but then I let him know that Glenn's wife told me he had never worked late. Eventually, I found out he was cheating on me with a woman down the street from us. She has 2 entrances into her driveway, and he would use the north entrance and then park in her garage, so even if the kids and I drove by, we wouldn't see. Then he would leave her house at exactly 9:58 to be home at 10 o'clock. I am leaving him, which he doesn't not want. A lot of people said to get proof of his cheating. In our state, it doesn't make a difference if I have proof of adultery or not. Thank you to everyone for your comments and well wishes. Have a great night. You do what serves you best. I mean, after all, he had no issues being profoundly selfish, a liar, and a sneak for 2 years, so he shouldn't be surprised. Divorce sucks. It's scary and stressful, but it also has another side at the end which will hopefully be filled with calm and healing for you and your children. Best wishes, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with this. The audacity of the man to claim he doesn't want her to leave him after him cheating on her for 2 years. What the hell does he think was going to happen? Somehow knowing he was able to do this just down the street from his family makes it feel even worse, and how he hid the car so tactfully? Like, what else has he hid? What else does he hide? I'm sorry, what an absolute piece of, I can write a thesis about what I think about him, but it won't change anything. You made the right decision, and you'll end up better and stronger. You were so strong standing by your decision and not letting him emotionally manipulate you. You have no idea how strong you are. Well, at least for me. Hugs from afar and electronically. We're proud of you. We support you. You didn't deserve this. Public North Carolina school says my son's hairstyle and color violates school's social norms. So I was called to school today and was told that my son has been giving a warning that his new hairstyle is against school's social norms. I asked for a copy of a document that describes the school's social norms, which they did not provide. They instead said that it's a matter of judgment by the school staff. My son has long hair and has recently dyed it electric blue. He likes it this way. They told me that he has a week to change his hairstyle to an appropriate and acceptable hairstyle, or he will be suspended until his hairstyle becomes acceptable. I told them that, to me, it seems like this is a matter of freedom of expression and that the school needs to abide by the First Amendment. They told me that there is no First Amendment in schools, and the freedom of expression of students is only as far as the school staff allow. I'm not going to tell my son that he can't wear his favorite hairstyle and color only to appease the school administrators, unless they have a legal right in restricting his access to the school and education for his hairstyle. What's the most reasonable course of action for us? First, is this a First Amendment issue? And second, who do I talk to next? Now in the comments, the school is probably right. The recent cases you've heard of where schools were successfully sued over dress codes were based on the restriction of racially distinct hairstyles. The obvious problem here being that those policies tended to discriminate against black students. A restriction against dyeing your hair electric blue is unlikely to be deemed discriminatory against any cognizable group, let alone a protected class. With regard to the First Amendment, there is a limitation on that which schools do enjoy. See, for instance, Tinker versus Des Moines. The school has the right to curtail speech or other forms of expression if reasonably necessary to achieve legitimate educational goals. If the school is reasonable in finding that the blue hair has some sort of disruptive effect, they're legally permitted to ban such hairstyles. And OP asks, so who determines this and based on what? Shouldn't there be some form of evidentiary procedure at the basis of these restrictions? There is no actual school policy that says this is banned. I guess they can make up some now, but at this moment there isn't. The school determines it based on their understanding of cause and effect. There is no need for process at this point. If you think they've determined it unreasonably, you can sue. And that's when there is a process whereby a judge can, after evidence and argument, either determine that that is reasonably in furtherance of a legitimate educational goal, or is not reasonably in furtherance of a legitimate educational goal. What we are telling you is that based on extant law and the facts above, you wouldn't win that case. And OP says, "Thank you, I understand now. Should I get this demand in writing from the school, so that we know what to expect? I don't want him to pick a new style, only to see that it's not allowed, since there are no actual guidelines, and the school is making stuff up as they go along." Well, you could always buy him a few wigs and wig caps, wear differential conventional hairstyles in school, being careful never to show the electric blue. He can keep it, wear it after school, home, off campus, and annoy the teachers with tacky convention wigs. Today is Ellen hair, tomorrow, who knows? This isn't a fight you are going to win. Unnatural hair colors are commonly banned as part of public schools' dress codes, and even if it's not explicitly stated, administrators do have the authority to make judgment calls if they deem something disruptive. I'm sorry that your son won't be able to wear his favorite hairstyle, but as his mum, let him know that you agree that this situation is unfair, and as a compromise, you will allow him to wear his hair however he wants in the summer months. Also, since the school's policy probably only extends to unnatural colors, maybe he'd be open to switching to black or red, or whatever is drastically different from his natural hair color. And now onto the update. I want to thank you all for the help and advice that you gave us. I realized that this, while stupid, is probably within the rights of the school, but that didn't mean there was nothing we could do. A lot of you brought up the idea of using a wig. Sadly, wigs also weren't allowed, except for legitimate religious, cultural, or medical reasons with prior approval. However, what did surprise me was that there were 2 girls who were on a green dye for months without a problem. This definitely sounded like gender discrimination, allowing that dye for girls and not boys. So I went in there to speak with the principal again. I told him that I'm recording the conversation, and after speaking about wigs, told him that they are allowing girls to do that, but not boys. Principal said this is a matter of judgment because unnatural hair colors doesn't diminish the feminine attributes of women, but the unnatural hair colors for men does diminish their masculine attributes. I got it then. That nonsense is all this has been about. They think long and blue hair on a boy isn't manly enough. I reminded him that this is gender discrimination and gender is a protected class. He remained silent for more than a minute. I expected him to say it's fine and they'll backtrack, but I was shocked when he told me that I'm right. They'll reinforce this requirement for girls too. It's best to get rid of these unnatural colors from our school. I hate what I did. The last thing I wanted was to cause trouble for those girls, or start a chain of actions that could have ended up with them being forced to change their favorite hairstyles. They were contacted too, and were given the same choice. 2 days later, my son came to me and said he's spoken with the girls and they have a solution. They want to dye their hair a very white, silverish color. It's naturally occurring because you get it when you get old, and some people are born with it as well. I know the more mature thing would have been to tell him to end this game, but I was a teenager once as well, and I was even more stubborn than he is now, so I allowed it. The school didn't like it. The 3 of them were called to the principal's office, and they argued their case that their hair color is naturally occurring now. They said it's the same color as one of the teachers who is quite old. Are you gonna suspend Mr. X as well over his hair color? The principal laughed at them and backed off. It's been a couple of weeks since then and there hasn't been any issues. And this new color looks good on my son. Now in the comments, diminish their masculine attributes. Wow, that is some breathtaking levels of bullcrap right there. Screw school systems that don't allow fun hair colors. I dyed my hair from grades 5th to graduation, and I always had shades of blue and purples without issue. The moment I got pink streaks, the administration threw a hissy fit because dyed color wasn't allowed. I got screwed over because my mother was on the board of directors, and so she had to be on the school's side and literally fought me on this. ended up with blonde hair and dyed it half black, half pink the day after graduation. A few years after graduating, a classmate who had gone to law school called me to let me know that she had just learned that in our district, they couldn't enforce that, as it was indeed deemed as a violation of freedom of speech, and the school and my mum had been wrong. Haven't had natural hair colors since, and it's been a pretty fun colored decade. Our next post is titled, I don't want to help my boyfriend buy a house. I've been with Mark for 2 years now. When we got into a relationship, we discussed what we wanted, marriage, kids, but we haven't really talked about taking the next step yet. Mark's dream has been to own his own home. He's been saving up for it, but because we live in a medium to high cost of living city, it's not going as fast as he'd have liked. Yesterday, he asked me if I would consider covering rent and utilities for a year while he aggressively saves. Frankly, I'm not 100% on board. I told him this. I asked him if he has thought about marriage. He said that it might be too soon, and I agree, but that he definitely loved me and saw a future with me. I then asked him if the house would completely be his own or if we would buy it together. And he said it'd be completely his own because we aren't married yet, and buying a house together would be risky. I asked him if he would pay me back his share, and he said eventually. I've inherited a house from my grandmother in a high cost of living city, which I'm currently renting out. I do not want to lose it, and when I inherited it, Mark and I agreed that if we ever head towards marriage, he's fully on board to sign a prenup that ensures he has no claim on it. He stated that he would include this house in the prenup because it'd be his own. Here's my problem. Mark has not done anything for my grandma's house, and neither have I. The house was in perfect condition. I rented it out within months of finalizing the inheritance, but he has literally no reason to stake a claim. But by covering rent and utilities, I will be providing monetary assistance to him, and if we break up, I'd have lost quite a bit of money for seemingly no reason. In a way, I would feel entitled to a part of his house. Is this a selfish way to think? I love him, but I don't want to assume this risk, especially because our future together is not clear. I asked him if he'd consider moving in with his parents, and I'll find a roommate temporarily for a year so that he could save up the money. This way, I wouldn't have to spend more than I need to, he would achieve his goal, and we can still continue our relationship. But he said I was being incredibly selfish and untrustworthy because it would be our home, just not on paper. And also that I clearly didn't see a future with him, and now he's not talking to me. A part of me feels like this relationship is doomed. Is there a way to salvage this? So he wants to buy a house with your money, in part, but you don't get to own any of it. That makes no sense. How about you split the rent and you each save the other half so that you have enough money to put a down payment on a house together if you were ever ready to do it? How much more does he need to save? A year's worth of rent is what, 12K? He's going to owe you at least 12 grand, and likely wouldn't be able to repay that very quickly, considering he couldn't save that unless you covered his rent for a year. 12 grand is also not going to put a very significant dent in any down payment amounts. No offense. Since you already discussed prenups, if you do decide to go through with this agreement, get a lawyer and have them write up a contract. State in the contract that you covered X dollars of the rent and that he is obligated to pay you back, or that you would get equity stake in that property. While this is a good answer, and I like it a lot, no bank would then give him a mortgage on a home if he was already on the hook to pay back X amount out of his house to someone else. You can't get a loan for any of the down payment and then get a mortgage. That's why any money that you get from someone that you put towards the down payment, the people have to specifically write out signed letters stating that it's a gift. Yeah, sorry, but no. Sounds like he wants all the benefits of a marriage. There is no risk to him here, and that makes this an unreasonable request for him to make. You are 100% correct in refusing to do this under the terms he has laid out. Right? He doesn't want a marriage commitment, nor does he even want shared real estate commitment. He just wants you to let him live rent-free for a year so he can get closer to his solo goals. This isn't partnership and sharing and support, it's just straight up him using you. And now on to the update. So, after a few days, I proposed the following to Mark. I'd front him the money, instead of paying for his rent 12 plus months, that he needed for the down payment on his house. He'd calculate what percentage that money would be of the total cost of the house. The houses he was considering were in the $500K range. I would own that percentage of the house, not 50-50 or anything, just the percentage I paid for. If he pays me back within a year, without any interest, I'd remove my name from the deed and he would own his house completely. If he doesn't pay me back within the year, he would have to pay me whatever my percent was worth a year down the line if he intended on owning the house fully. Otherwise, I was happy to have a 10% claim on the house forever. So basically, if I fronted him $50K for a $500K house, I would own 10%. I would charge him no interest for the first year. However, if he doesn't pay me back, then he'd need to pay me 10% of whatever the house was worth the next year. So if the house is $600K, he'd owe me $60K, and so on. To be honest, this isn't that great a deal, because real estate prices are nuts right now and are increasing pretty dramatically. So this is literally worse than taking out a loan. I proposed this in the hopes that he would decline, and we would just go back to never having discussed this at all. To my surprise, he immediately agreed and said he'd get a lawyer to draft an agreement, even though he hadn't finalized a house. Well, okay then. He had it ready in 2 days. He was incredibly pushy about me signing it, but I wanted to review the whole thing with my lawyer, so I didn't care. Turns out, there were some super shady clauses added, with my contribution being termed as a gift and not a loan. I'm not going to go into details, but my lawyer said that this agreement was super problematic and would cause all sorts of issues down the line. He drafted an alternative and sent it to Mark. Mark did not sign it. He was adamant that I signed the original agreement and wouldn't tell me why. He got increasingly angry, became kind of violent, which was the first time and I was very surprised and scared, and called me a cow for not trusting him and for reducing our relationship to a transaction. After 2 whole days of this, of emotional manipulation and gaslighting, I decided that I no longer trusted or cared for this man, and there is no way in hell that I can continue to be in a relationship with him. So yeah, I'm out of that relationship, y'all, and my money is all mine. All I can feel is peace. And now in the comments, that motherfucker never had any intention of paying you back that $50K. I wouldn't be surprised if his plan was to string you along with the promise of marriage and milk you for rent money as long as possible. Good on you for seeing through his bullcrap. Agreed. I think him getting violent, seriously what a piece of scum, confirms that he ultimately viewed OP as nothing more than an ATM. You dodged a major bullet. You handled things really well, you acted in good faith, and you were civil. You were financially and legally prudent. He wasn't, and he showed you his true colors. I think you made the right choice every step of the way. For whatever it's worth, this internet stranger is very proud of you. Quote, called me a cow for not trusting him. I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I'm 100% positive every single piss-taking grifter's final words are exactly the same. Translation, how dare you find out and call me out for knowingly trying to rip you off? It really does light up how little shame they have and how manipulative and comfortable they are, acting like a decent person to get what they want from you. Once you translate that line, you get the benefit of a little shudder and ew when you think of that person, so getting over them is easier. What the ever-loving hell? All I can say is, I'm glad he did this so that she could see what a mercenary fuck he was and dump his ass. If he was above board in the first place, she could have given him a loan for $50K to be paid back with interest with the house as collateral, and signed a contract as such. The fact he did not want to buy a house together is telling. He does not see a future with her, but wanted to use her to help him buy a house. A gift is legally something that does not have to be paid back. His lawyer was doing his bidding. What's more, an ethical lawyer would want the other party to consult their own lawyer, or the contract could be challenged at a later date because one partner did not have legal counsel. It's why lawyers who do prenups strongly advise that both parties have their own separate counsel. Also, property inherited prior to marriage is considered separate property anyways. My wife wants to have another baby despite both agreeing never to get pregnant again after her first pregnancy being a nightmare. So 2 years ago, my wife gave birth to our baby boy. He is wonderful and we both love him very much. My wife had an absolutely horrible pregnancy experience. She was in good health before the pregnancy, as was I. Neither of us were athletes or anything, but we casually exercised and were conscious of what we ate, but weren't on strict diets or anything. Despite being in good health, her pregnancy was awful. She threw up almost every day for the first 2 trimesters, her legs and feet became shockingly swollen, she developed diabetes and high blood pressure, and her liver and kidneys became at risk of being damaged. On and off anemia issues, and a whole book of other random things that I can't remember all of. All of this was despite working so hard with her doctors to mitigate the issues. She was put on many medications, given diet plans, low-stress stretching exercises. She had to stop working in the 3rd month because of how sick she became. I helped her all that I could. My entire life outside of work revolved around caring for her. I made all her meals, which became increasingly restrictive as more complications arose and as she was put on and taken off various medications. I bathed her, dressed her, cleaned up her vomit multiple times a week, changed so many bed sheets because she would sweat profusely or accidentally pee herself. Sometimes because she was in too much pain to get up, sometimes because she couldn't realize she needed to pee, cleaned her poo a few times, helped her wipe herself, and at times I felt like a live-in nurse for a severely disabled person, if that helps paint a picture of it. It was awful and dirty, but I knew that I needed to do all of the things for her, and I wanted to do all I could to alleviate her suffering. But the worst part was the changes in her mental state. I could have done all of this with a smile on my face if she didn't become so cruel and violent during the pregnancy. She had previously never ever been abusive in any way. We were loving. When we had disagreements, we never even raised our voices. We sat and talked. She completely changed while she was pregnant. She yelled at me, swore at me, called me every slur known to man, threw things at me, hit me, told her parents I didn't love her, broke doors, shattered glasses and plates, threatened to kill me. I'd serve her food in bed and she'd throw it on the ground if she didn't like it. After doing this for the 3rd time with oatmeal, I told her I wouldn't serve her oatmeal anymore because I was tired of having to spend hours on my knees digging dried oats out of the carpet. She exploded at that because oatmeal was one of the few things that didn't make her nauseous at the time and threw a coffee mug at my face, which gave me a black eye. This kind of thing became constant and increasingly worse as time went on. After giving birth, she stayed in the hospital for almost 2 weeks at her doctor's request because she had so many complications. I took the baby home after the first week. She eventually came home and had some issues with postpartum depression. But thanks to the close observance of her doctor, it was addressed relatively quickly and she was put on medication. So here we are, 2 years later, and the woman that she was while pregnant doesn't exist anymore. She is back to her old self, still having some lasting but minor physical issues from the pregnancy, but overall is healthy again, mentally and physically. I won't lie, it took me some time to love her again. After I took the baby home, there was a part of me that hoped she wouldn't come back from the hospital. I had no positive feelings for her at that time. I slept in a different room for 4 months afterward. We didn't go to counseling because we just didn't have the time, but eventually, after many talks, I realized that the woman she was while pregnant is gone. She is extremely sorry and regrets everything, and can't explain why she did what she did, but is disgusted with who she was. And around our son's first birthday, we agreed that she would never get pregnant again, due to how dangerous her pregnancy was for her, and how abusive she became toward me. Our relationship is good and loving now, and we both love our son very much. We are happy again. But Earlier this week, she mentioned she wouldn't mind having another kid in an offhanded comment. This obviously shocked me. We had agreed to never do it again. I didn't address the comment at the time, but over the next day, I kept thinking about it, and that night I asked her what she meant by that comment. She said she'd been thinking about it, and she decided she wants to try for a daughter and suggests going off her birth control. I probably didn't handle this as well as I could have, but I just stared at her and said, no. She said, what do you mean no? You just don't get to say no. I said no. I'm not doing that again, and we had an agreement. I will not even consider the thought of you being pregnant again. She started crying, saying it's not fair. We have a boy and she wants a girl too. I explained that we can't predict it will be a girl, what happens if it's another boy, and what happens if you die from another pregnancy. She wouldn't continue talking and just cried. I went to sleep in another room. That was Tuesday night. I've been sleeping in the living room, and we basically haven't said more than 50 words to each other since then. I don't know what to do. I don't know where this is coming from. It's honestly insane. She could literally die from another pregnancy, and I will not be her slave and punching bag for 9 months again. Plus, we have a toddler now. If she were to get pregnant, I wouldn't be able to give her the level of care that I did the first time, and if she became abusive again, then she could direct it at our son too, and I wouldn't tolerate a single instance of that. The very moment she tried to become cruel to him, I would take him and she would never see us again. I'm lost and I'm mad. I feel lied to, or betrayed, or like a fool. Like I've been conned or taken advantage of. All the bad feelings I had toward her from the pregnancy are bubbling up. I don't know what I feel or how to talk to her. And edit, I'm not having sex until this is resolved, so you can all stop posting about that. As I said in another comment, I don't have any sexual appetite for her at this time anyway because of how sad, angry, upset, and frustrated I am, so I have no problem pausing sex. Now in the comments, make it clear to her what actually happened during her pregnancy and do not be nice. You almost died, but if you want to risk that, that's your decision. What is not your decision is to risk treating me the way you did during the pregnancy. You weren't mean, you weren't a nightmare, you weren't even toxic, you were far, far beyond any of that. You yelled at me for the smallest things, you hit me, injured me, you threatened to kill me, you became the worst imaginable abuser to me while I was taking care of you and doing everything in my power to help you. The fact we are still together and I was able to love you again makes me a saint. Your pregnancy made you the worst piece of crap abuser imaginable. I repeat, you threatened to kill me several times. You will not subject me to that again. Little bit of a writing exercise that, but point is to take the gloves off here. She might be in denial of what happened, or she might even have legitimately kind of forgotten exactly how bad it was. And you need to make it clear exactly how bad it was. Hold nothing back, and do not sugarcoat or put it in any other light than the black void that it was. Good luck. You both need to go to therapy and/or counseling to work through this. In her mind, her actions had no consequences, aside from a few months of sleeping in different rooms. You were still with her, and she clearly doesn't care or remember how abusive she was toward you. And I hate to say this, but you should start wearing condoms or participating in another form of birth control aside from her pills. The fact that she said you don't get to say no is a red flag that she may ignore your decision and stop taking her pill without telling you. And OP replies, I interpreted her you don't just get to say no comment to mean you can't say no without talking it out at all, which I understand. But I thought we had already talked it all out. We spent a year talking it all out, and we mutually agreed that she should never get pregnant again. I thought we both already said no. And yeah, the sex thing. I was afraid to mention it because it seemed like a dramatic thought, but I've been worrying over that too. I won't be having any sex until this is resolved. This fight is a huge turn-off anyway, so I don't think it'll be a problem. I can't exactly find her attractive when I have all these sad, angry, and hurt feelings right now. Someone else says, For the love of God, schedule your vasectomy. That sucks. Does she fully remember how awful and abusive she was to you? It sounds like she had a psychiatric break during her pregnancy. You are already clear that this is a deal breaker for you, so I'd suggest that the next time you speak about that, you are clear you will leave if she puts you in that situation. You should not tolerate being abused again, and it's awful that she would even consider getting pregnant again, considering everything that happened the last time. OP replies, I assume she remembers. We have had many discussions about everything that happened during her pregnancy, including how she treated me. I'd say like 80% of all conversations we had in the first year after my son's birth were about it. It has been 8-ish months since we had a real conversation about any of it, but I thought that was because we had resolved everything and felt good about it. I hope she wouldn't have forgotten all of our talks over the last 8 months. And now on to the update. So, wife and I were able to talk the day after that post. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well. Before I left for work, I hugged her, said I'm sorry for immediately saying no, and that I wanted to talk through it after work and hear all of her thoughts about it. She agreed, both said I love yous, and things seemed calm and positive as I left. That night, I asked her why she changed her mind about another baby, and just what she was thinking overall. She basically said she's getting older, her window for another baby is closing, and it made her realize she wanted at least one more, and that she also really wants a girl. I asked what happens if it's not a girl, and she said in that case we would try again. I asked if she remembered the last pregnancy, how dangerous it was, how her kidneys were permanently damaged from it, how she was so sick that I had to basically be her live-in nurse, and that if she got pregnant again, she could have total kidney failure and died. She said she's not worried because she knows God will protect her and will provide what we need. That really threw me off. I don't think I've ever heard her speak about a God like that at any point in our entire 6-year relationship. We are not religious people. I don't think we have ever been in a church together. Our wedding wasn't even in a church. We don't own a Bible. The last time I was in a church was my mum's funeral 9 years ago. After the God comment, I didn't know what to say. I was just shocked, and I laid my head on the back of the couch and looked up at the ceiling. She asked what was wrong. I said that this is a lot, that she is saying the opposite of what we had previously agreed, and I don't think I can change my mind on this because I don't want her to get deathly sick, and that I don't think I can go through the abuse again. I did use the word abuse, which maybe I shouldn't have because it set her off. She started ranting. Abuse? What abuse? You're accusing me of abuse? I reminded her of the coffee cup, throwing food on the floor, the name-calling, the slandering me to my friends and family, and multiple other incidents. But she just kept talking over me. You really think that's who I am? I want another baby, and this is what you think about? I said yes, it is what I think about, because it's what happened last time. Everything just fell apart from there. She was yelling and crying, I couldn't get a word in. Calling me a bunch of names, saying that I don't love her, I can't understand what it's like for her. Why can't I just give her this one thing? It's what God wants for us, it's God's plan, and on and on and on like this. I couldn't calm her down or convince her to go to bed. She was following me around the house and angry crying. One thing that really concerned me is she said something like, loving our son is much easier for me because he looks like me, that she can't see any of herself in him, and it isn't fair, and that's why she wants a daughter. She made it sound like she doesn't love our son, and could only love a daughter that looks like her. Finally, all the noise woke our kid back up, and I told her that I have to take him on a drive to get him back to sleep. I drove around for an hour, put him back to bed, and she was awake but locked in our room, so I slept in the living room again. She left early the next morning, and I later found out she went to her mum's house. She was gone the whole day, so the kid and I had the day together. We eventually went to my older brother and sister-in-law's, both mid-30s, house, and I kind of vented to them. I was very surprised to hear sister-in-law say, yeah, we've been waiting for this, and that it took longer than expected. My brother agreed, and they basically said that they've seen this in her for as long as we've been together, and were concerned but unsurprised with her behavior during the pregnancy, and that the pregnancy let the genie out of the bottle. That who she was at that time is who she really is. They see her slipping more into that behavior every time we hang out, and they are more concerned. I told my wife that Kiddo and I were staying at Brothers last night. She never replied, and that's where I still am today. I took a sick day today and probably will tomorrow. I'm lucky my boy is such an easygoing kiddo. 90% of the day, he is giggly and happy and loves to give hugs. For me, he honestly relieves more stress than he creates, and luckily my brother and sister-in-law can't get enough of him. I think I might have to divorce my wife. I've been talking to my brother about it and mentioning marriage therapy, but he said to be careful because therapy could just make my wife hide her ways just long enough to get pregnant again. He says she is very manipulative and is relieved that I'm finally starting to see it. I really didn't think she was that kind of person, but I guess I've been willfully ignorant this whole time. As some of you said in the last post, I think I've been lying to myself. Brother and sister-in-law say she didn't go back to normal after the birth, she just dialed it back a little, and I told myself it was normal. I feel lost. I think I need to get divorced. I don't want to, but I think the only other option is to stay with her, which I also don't want to do. I wish I could stay with my son at my brother's forever and never have to acknowledge the real world ever again. And now in the comments, what's enlightening was you said abuse and she reverted to abuse. You called it. Interesting that all this talk of children and no real concern for her child. Listen to your family. Racists hate to be called racists, abusers hate to be called abusers. It is very similar. OP, one thing to note, abusers very frequently, always, accuse their victim of abuse. Don't buy it. It is distraction and projection intended to save their image to themselves and others. Sounds like your family won't buy it either. Going forward, document, 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 record, record, record. While it may not be admissible in divorce court, it can help with family. Watch for her escalating to the physical. Police are horrid in physical violence calls, but it almost always goes worse for men. You could find yourself accused of physical abuse in an incident that she initiates. Police very often arrest the man, regardless of the circumstances. Lots of stigma there. Wow, I'm so sorry you're having to deal with all of this. It's really concerning that your brother and sister-in-law saw this coming. Makes me wonder what they've been seeing that you haven't. Did they share any examples that may have triggered a realization for you? And as someone else pointed out, counseling with an abuser is bad news. Absolutely, you should seek counseling for yourself to help you work through this awful situation though. And OP replies, our wedding/honeymoon and our finances have a repeated topic of concern from brother and sister-in-law. I didn't get any say in any of the wedding and honeymoon, she wanted full control, and basically just wanted me to pay and show up. I was sad about it, but eventually brushed it off by saying it's the most important day of a woman's life, and the day is about her, so I should let her do what she wants. I know now that a wedding is supposed to be about us, not just her, but at the time I was hearing from everyone on her side that it is her special day, and I didn't want to rock the boat and start our marriage off on a bad foot. We are not super financially stable. I wanted to wait longer for a child because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but my finances made that very hard. But she didn't want to wait, so we got pregnant, she quit her job during the pregnancy and hasn't been back. Luckily, I've received some pay bumps since then and don't have to work as much overtime now, but our finances are still stretched pretty thin and it's a big stressor for me. It would certainly help if she got a part-time job, but she has never allowed that conversation. I know that I'm a massive pushover. I think of myself as easygoing, but my brother says I'm avoiding conflict by letting her do whatever she wants. He's right. It just sucks that it took this long for me to stop lying to myself. Wow. So you need to dig deep for a very good lawyer because she is going to try to bleed you dry in the divorce. She has no intention of ever working again. OP says, I mean, we've been married for 6 years and she's only been out of work for about 3 years, and we don't own a home, we rent, and we own 2 shitbox cars, have some shared credit card debt and a tiny savings, and I have a very sad little pension through my job. I feel like there isn't very much to bleed me of. OP says her PPD was treated relatively quickly, but I have doubts. Either pregnancy triggered a mental change that hasn't been properly addressed, or she is always a little unhinged and hid it well. I don't know how OP didn't run after the first thrown dish. My guess is a little from column A and a little from column B. She wants another baby so bad, but had no problems up until leaving her current toddler and not talking to him for the last few days. No, you see, it'll be different when she has a daughter, until the daughter starts to grow up and become an independent person. My parents don't like me having a relationship with my ex's kids. So my ex and I were married for 4 years, and we got divorced 2 years ago. She had 2 children from a previous relationship, a girl and a boy aged 9 and 8 when we got married. I loved them like my own and got pretty close to them in my marriage. I was the first stable father figure they had. My parents never liked my ex. They didn't like that she was older and had kids. They told me that I was young and should want to start my own family. I ignored them and married her. We got divorced because we fell out of love. Our divorce was amicable, and I still talk to my ex sometimes. But I've maintained a good relationship with her children, and I love them. They are 15 and 14 now, and stay with me some weekends. I go to their school for their sporting events. They like me very much, and my ex never objected to any of it. My parents have been grumbling about how I wasn't their father ever since I got divorced. They kept telling me that they are not my responsibility. I've started seeing someone recently, and my parents told me that I should stop seeing the kids. Even a couple of my friends told me that I shouldn't be the father of my ex's children. I didn't know that having a relationship with your ex's children is looked down upon. How should I deal with this? Now in the comments, I don't like religious connotations on society, but Catholics might have a good idea when it comes to godparents. You were a part of their life, and it wouldn't be weird to be a godparent. That would be someone who can be unrelated who has a significant impact on the child's life. It wouldn't even be weird once you had your own kids. I get that without the religious connotation, there isn't really an equivalent role, but you and your ex should talk about the labels and roles that you could fill, especially as she decides to date, and you could be in competition there as well. Having a non-parent role defined might relieve tension. Ignore the haters. This is lovely, and it demonstrates who in this story is a good person who cares about others, and it demonstrates who are small-minded, selfish people. In my opinion, it's totally fine and probably great for the kids. My ex and I parted ways 15 years ago. He is still a father figure to my now 23-year-old. He has been in her life as my friend since she was born, and as her stepfather since she was a couple years old. Her father isn't the best guy, and rarely talks to her even though she's made an effort herself to visit and have a relationship with him. My ex is the person I really consider to be her father, as does he. Even though we aren't together and she's an adult now, he still helps her when she needs it. They stay in contact, and honestly, if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have anyone. I think that you're still wanting and willing to be a part of their lives is an incredible thing. The world needs more people like you. And now onto the update. So after I made the previous post, I spoke with my ex about the issue. She said that she was happy that I kept in touch with her children. She also said that her children were always eager to spend time with me, and that my presence rectified her regret of not having a father to her kids. We decided that I would be her children's godparent. When I told my parents about it, they were furious. I told them clearly that it was my decision and that they had no part in it. I also told them that I would stop talking to them if they kept pushing it. My girlfriend supported my decision as well. I want to thank the person who gave me the godparent idea and all the people who replied to the previous post. Thank you. What a great compromise, and what a wonderful and healthy way to be a great role model to the children. Props to both you, your ex, and your new girlfriend for being able to communicate in a positive and healthy way and show the children that breakups don't have to be toxic. You all sound great. Except your parents. Sorry, but they sound pretty rubbish. It sounds like you have a great situation and relationships with your ex and current girlfriend. I would just keep ignoring your parents' advice and feedback. What the hell is wrong with them that they would basically want a couple of children to suffer for absolutely no reason? It would be hard to take any advice from them seriously. In the wise words of Mel Horowitz, you divorce wives, not children. Well done, OP. It sounds like OP may need to divorce his parents also. Another weird, stupid, nonsensical hill that someone is dying on. All because of their hatred for his ex, they are missing out on being grandparents to kids who didn't do anything to deserve their hatred, and they are on the threshold of losing their son, all because they can't keep their mouths shut and let their adult son live his own life. My fiancé had a 4-year-old daughter when we began our relationship. She asked to call me dad at 6. Her mum and I broke our engagement when she was in 6th grade, but it was a mutual decision and we decided to split custody, even though it was more organic than the cold phrase make it sound. And this year, my amazing and beautiful daughter turns 23. I was told by peers and adult role models alike not to make the decision to raise her as my own, and I'm happy to say that I followed my gut and heart and raised her with my ex into becoming such a wonderful person and my best friend. Don't let anybody tell you who your family is. Even your family. I officially and legally adopt my daughter, 23, this summer. Our next post is titled, Am I the arsehole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? So I, 23 female, and my husband, 24 male, just had our first baby. My husband was so excited and was super supportive and caring throughout the pregnancy. The only thing is that he became slightly obsessed with watching YouTube and TikTok videos of husbands pulling pranks on their wives while in labor. I didn't mind at first, but then he started casually joking about doing things that he saw in the videos, saying it would be funny. I clearly stated my distaste for them and asked him not to do anything like what he saw. He agreed and continued to joke about it time to time, but I brushed it off since I trusted him and thought nothing would come of it. The day of the delivery came, and I had been in labor for 8 hours, 12 hours total. I had just finished another round of contractions when my husband let out the loudest fart, turned to me and said, "What the hell have you been eating, OP? It smells disgusting." I immediately recognized that as one of the pranks in the videos. Outraged at him not honoring what I asked him not to do, I demanded that he leave the room. He started arguing, saying it was just a joke, but I insisted, and luckily the nurse helped get him out. I went through the last 4 hours of labor by myself, since my family lives out of state and I'm not close to my mother-in-law. After the delivery, I told the nurse he could come back into the room, and he was fuming. He started demanding that I tell him why I kicked him out. I calmly told him the reason, but he was pissed. He hasn't talked to me in a week. His mum is taking his side, saying that I was a complete cow for kicking him out. Normally he will defend me from her, but this time he completely agreed. I might be the arsehole because I know how much he was looking forward to being there for the birth of our first kid, and especially when he got to cut the cord. But I still kicked him out and refused to let him back in. The nurse asked me a few times if I wanted him back, but each time I said no. Am I the arsehole for kicking my husband out after a stupid prank that he agreed not to do? Now in the comments, not the arsehole. If he was really excited about seeing his child be born, he would have honored your request. I can't imagine where this trend originated. You know what would be funny? If when my wife or significant other has been in labor for hours, in pain, exhausted, being torn apart from the inside, I played a prank on her. Wouldn't it be hysterical if instead of giving her the support she needs, I humiliated her? That's your significant other. He thinks like a 5-year-old, and his mother, who was given birth herself, says that's okay? That means in her eyes, nothing he does, no matter who it hurts, is wrong. She will always support him over you. That invalidates her opinion in any argument you have with your husband. That she is even allowed an opinion in a private matter between the two of you is another issue. Do not feel guilty for robbing him of this experience. You did not. He threw it away all by himself. Not the arsehole. And what did he think was funny about that? Also, how totally gross for the delivery room personnel who definitely did not to hear or smell a grown man fart loudly. Well, he played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. I'm so sorry this is messing up what should have been a magical time for you both. Edit, TikTok is the asshole. Of course, the husband is the asshole too, but TikTok spreads evil all over the world. Her husband just spread miasmic evil in one delivery room. TikTok might be an asshole, but OP's husband is too. Social media can be crazy, but whether or not you participate in that craziness is on you. It's not like TikTok brainwashed him into watching those pranks, even though he didn't want to. If he hadn't been watching and interacting with them on his own, the algorithm wouldn't show them to him at all. Unless he has pushed a melon-sized human being out of his dick, he cannot dictate what is and is not acceptable in the delivery room. The only one who has any say in that is the person actually giving birth, his wife. These trends are not funny at all. If anything, they are pretty cruel. During a woman's lowest and most vulnerable, when she is tearing herself apart and covered in blood, her husband pulled a prank on her. Instead of the support she needs, he thinks it would be funny to humiliate her, to make fun of what could have been a very traumatic experience for her. Oh, and after he humiliated her, he punished her justified reaction by not talking to her for the first week of their child's life? OP, are you sure he's mature enough to raise your child? I really hope you are being hyperbolic when you say he hasn't talked to you during the first week of your baby's life. If not, this issue is much bigger than pulling a stupid prank in the delivery room. Yeah, the silent treatment, when weaponized like this, is emotional abuse. He doesn't legitimately need space to process, he is just trying to punish OP again during one of the most vulnerable parts of her life when she needs his support. Adding on that he's letting his mum contribute more abuse, and it's a lot of red flags. OP, I know he just pulled a joke in poor taste, but a lot of abusers use a child's birth as a point to flip the relationship so that they can have more control. So make sure not to fall for it. Best case scenario, he's just acting sulky and immature. Though whether or not you can deal with this one extra baby you didn't ask for is another question. Best wishes, OP, and congrats on your newborn. I hope you have some support in your life. And now back up to the post. Edit. I just wanted to thank everyone for all the support and reassurance on here, and wanted to answer some questions and give an update. For questions, he has been bonding with the baby, but not quite helping. When he felt like holding her, he would just take her from my arms, or if mother-in-law was around, he would ask her to get the baby. And I know I posted this answer previously, but I wanted to put it here in case anyone missed it. If he had been apologetic in any way, I would have let him come back into the delivery room. And the nurse did check on him, but he was sulking and complaining that I did that. Update: it's been a rough first week, but thankfully my mother arrived this morning to help out. I talked to my husband, as best I could, since he is still upset and ignoring me, and I told him how I was feeling. I have been feeling depressed and anxious since we brought the baby home, and that I understood why he was upset, but asked him to please see my side. He told me that I had no right to kick him out, and that our daughter would come to hate me one day for making him miss her birth. I started crying and begged him to please talk things through instead of saying things out of anger. He refused and said I was under his roof, so he had the final say, and he called me a C-word for kicking him out of the delivery room. I didn't say anything else to him, I just started packing myself and the baby's things and planned on leaving. He yelled, telling me that I couldn't take anything that he paid for. I haven't worked since the start of the pandemic. I just took the baby and told my mum that we were leaving. We are staying at a motel and will drive to my parents' house tomorrow. Sorry for the long update, but I wanted everyone to know the outcome. And now in the comments, don't worry, child support and alimony will pay for replacements, and your daughter will hate the prick that you are anyway. Yeah, WTF was, our child will one day resent me for not being there while she was born. I'm 25, and I have no fucking idea who was in the room when I was born, and I couldn't give a microcosm of a fuck less than I already do, so what the fuck is he talking about? Daughter will resent mother for, after having her wishes disrespected, and dad actively pranking mum during active labor, kicking dad out so he is not present in the room and cutting the umbilical cord, or daughter will resent father for, after disrespecting mum during one of the most intense and difficult moments of her life, having to be removed from the room during childbirth. then sulking like a child, instead of realizing he'd been making the labor harder and going back in to participate, then acting infantile and not only refusing to talk things out with mum, but also turn grandma against mum, and finally calling mum an expletive for trying to be a reasonable parent, telling mum she was under his roof, and then not letting her take anything with her for baby care when she fled the house. Normally, I wouldn't want a mum to poison a child against their parent and to keep that kind of relationship between parents drama from the child, but in this case, mum should provide all the details. His roof couldn't take anything he paid for, hasn't helped with the baby, still sulking a week later. This guy is a menace. He's gonna be sulking a lot more when that anything he paid for line turns into monthly alimony and child support payments. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my sister-in-law her friend is no longer allowed over because she wears revealing clothes around my husband? I, 23 female, have a husband, 24 male. He has a sister who he's extremely close to. Me and her have gotten along since my husband first introduced me to her, and I actually consider her my sister. Recently, she has started living with us. She was supposed to get married to her fiancé, but last second he cancelled the wedding and she had nowhere to live since he was her support system financially. We took her in while she gets back up on her feet. Well, since she lives with us, we allow her to bring over her friends. One friend, 24 female in particular, sleeps over a lot. I don't really mind since sister-in-law's room is in the attic and her friend doesn't really come out of her room often. I have noticed, though, that when my husband is out and she comes out of the attic, she would wear big hoodies and a long baggy pants. But as soon as my husband comes back, she'll go back up to the attic and come back wearing booty shorts and basically a transparent shirt which shows everything. I thought I was overreacting and didn't do anything about it, but the other day my husband came to me shaking. When I asked him what was wrong, he basically cried to me that he felt extremely uncomfortable and angry. When I asked for a reason, he said that every time sister-in-law's friend comes over, she literally flirts non-stop with him when no one is around. Once apparently, she even took off her pants and when he told her not to, she said that she just needed some air. The reason why he was so upset this time was because a few minutes earlier she had tried to grab his hand. My husband hates physical touch with anyone he's not comfortable with, hence that was a breaking point for him. After a long discussion between us two, we told sister-in-law how we didn't want her friend over anymore because she was making us both uncomfortable. Sister-in-law freaked out, saying that it wasn't her friend's fault that my husband was attracted to her, and started saying that we were both some sexist assholes. I feel really bad, honestly. I'm a big women activist, and this has really made me feel like a sexist woman. Also, sister-in-law refuses to look at me now, and I'm scared our relationship is ruined. I also feel bad because I know sister-in-law's friend was a big support system for her during these hard times, and I might have taken that away from her. Am I the asshole? And now in the comments, not the asshole. This friend is sexually harassing your husband. It has less to do with what she chooses to wear, and much more to do with her unwillingness to respect personal space and take a no. It is not sexist in the slightest. Would you at all accept a man coming in, taking off his pants and touching someone against their will? It's the same for her. Yeah, no means no is universal, not the asshole. It's disheartening to see OP question herself over this scenario because sexual harassment can 100% be committed by a woman against a man, and calling out that behavior is not being sexist or going against feminism. OP is not the asshole, and both she and her husband should not be subjected to this behavior in their own home. Quite the opposite. Freedom from unwanted sexual attention has been a core value of feminism since the beginning. Therefore, calling it out is the feminist thing to do. Not the asshole, OP. And if your husband's sister is going to call you names and make you uncomfortable in your own home, I would urge you to seriously consider whether this living arrangement should come to an end. Not the asshole. Sister-in-law, this has nothing to do with the attraction to your friend. Your friend has been sexually harassing and touching my husband against his direct consent. He came to me shaken because of how uncomfortable your guest made him feel in his own home by touching him. You and I both know that he doesn't like being touched by people he's not comfortable with. What is sexist here is that you think it's 100% acceptable of your friend to do to someone else, let alone to a married man who has no interest in her whatsoever. If you want to meet your friend, you can meet her outside of our home, but she is not allowed back, period. I am big on woman activism, but that doesn't mean I'm against it for men. Just as I actively disagree with sexual harassment for women, the same goes for men as well. If I find out you let her back here after how uncomfortable she made your brother through sexual harassment, I will serve you an eviction notice. I am not going to be painted as a sexist asshole for protecting my husband from your terrible friend. It's okay if that's the kind of company you want to keep, but I and my husband, and he should tell her this too, do not want to. And OP says, definitely will shorten it a bit if I use it, but thank you so much for the suggestion. And now on to the update. After seeing your comments, my husband also read them, decided that me and my husband's decision was final. It already was, but I and he just didn't want to feel guilty. And we told sister-in-law it was final, and her friend was no longer allowed over. She sighed, and to my surprise didn't protest, just sat there and took it. We thought that was that. Well, after telling her that her friend wasn't allowed over, we left to get food. We love getting pizza together to de-stress, and it was a mini date. However, when we came back, sister-in-law and her friend were sitting on the couch. Sister-in-law stood up and basically started cursing me out for thinking of her as a lowlife. Then she turned to my husband and demanded that he would reconsider who he married because I forced him to ban her from the house. My husband started yelling at her, and I just sat back and watched as she was yelled at like a kid. To sum it up, he was telling her she had no respect for herself because she just kept throwing herself on him even after he showed and told her he was uncomfortable. Sister-in-law sat there with her mouth open like she had no idea what was going on and why there was so much yelling. While sister-in-law's friend was getting yelled at by my husband, I called the police and they took sister-in-law's friend in for trespassing. Sister-in-law protested by saying that she let her in, but because sister-in-law doesn't pay rent and isn't on the house owner list, it was still considered trespassing. After sister-in-law's friend was taken, I had to sit back and watch another wave of yelling, this time between my husband and sister-in-law. I left mid-argument because it was too much for me to handle when sister-in-law started pointing at me and calling me vulgar names. I stayed in my bedroom, and when my husband came into the room, literally like 2 hours later, no, I didn't check on them because he told me to stay in the room until he told me to come out. He said he kicked her out and that she wouldn't be staying with us anymore. So yeah, sister-in-law hates me right now, my husband despises seeing his sister, and sister-in-law lives with my parents-in-law. Also, for the record, everyone in my husband's family is on our side, though I know for a fact sister-in-law and her friends, yes, all of them, despise my guts. I have to see sister-in-law this weekend for a family gathering, and honestly, I'm contemplating not going. My husband says he won't go if I don't, but I think that's unfair to his family. That's all I have for now, though. And now in the comments, good for you and your husband for taking out the trash, and kudos to the husband for handling the situation with his sister rather than relying on you to do it. I remember reading the post on Am I the Arsehole and was wondering how it would turn out. So thanks for the update. Not the arsehole. Like, what is up with the sister-in-law? Either you didn't know her as well as you thought, or something is going on. Honestly, it might be good for the two of you to not go and let the family ream her. Then again, she might turn them against you. Don't worry about being unfair to his family for now. You and your husband should focus on yourselves for a bit, since this was probably very stressful for both of you. Especially your husband, since he was sexually harassed. Don't go if you don't want to, your mental health comes first, and don't worry about what sister-in-law and her friends think. They are toxic and delusional, and you were both better off without them. I wonder why the fiancé called the wedding off last minute. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I also wonder if her little friend was involved too. Wouldn't be surprised. I was 99% certain the sister-in-law was encouraging the friend's behavior because she thought that it would be cute for them to be together. I'm still not convinced this is not the reason why she acted this way. It sucks because it wasn't even OP who had the complaint. She was just sticking up for her husband. It's actually really telling that sister-in-law and friend both assume that if a man doesn't want a woman flirting with him, it's his significant other's wishes and not his. My parents keep insisting that I'm gay, and I'm getting tired of it. About a year ago, I overheard my parents talking about me when they thought that I wasn't around, and I was really surprised to hear that they think I'm gay. I got really angry at them. I know there's nothing wrong with being gay, but I got angry because I've been bullied at school because people think I'm gay for years, and to hear my parents agreeing with the bullies just made me really angry. My parents weren't being mean or anything, I was just really tired of people thinking I'm gay. Anyway, I got really angry at them, but they never apologized or anything. They just said that they want me to be happy and love me no matter what. I decided I should try to get a girlfriend because I was tired of everyone thinking I was gay. I never really tried to get a girlfriend before because I barely have time to hang out with my friends because of school and work, so I didn't really have time for a girlfriend. But I found a girl that I actually really liked, and she was cool with me not having so much time for her, so it was a perfect match. When I started dating her, my parents again gave me the whole "we love you no matter what" speech, and it just infuriated me that they still thought I was gay. The bullying at school got worse after I started dating her, but I thought that after some time, they'd get bored now that I have a girlfriend, and they would stop. I was wrong, and it just kept getting worse, and my girlfriend started to notice it too. I never told anyone about the bullying because nothing can really fix it, so telling my parents or a teacher would just make things worse. We dated for about 6 months, and then she got tired of dating a loser who got bullied almost every day, and she broke up with me. And again, my parents gave me the "we love you no matter what" speech. I don't really care if people think I'm gay, but it's very annoying that my own parents keep giving me the same "we think you're gay" speech, and won't listen to me when I've told them I'm not gay. The bullies I just have to deal with until I'm finished with school here, but I wish my parents would stop. I don't really know why everyone thinks I'm gay. I don't feel like I give off those vibes, but apparently I do. And now in the comments, do you have a close friend that you could talk to that would tell you honestly why people think you are gay? I've known several men that aren't exactly masculine, but they aren't gay. Just their mannerisms and attention to detail that isn't, "I am all that is man." Nothing wrong with that. Imagine how boring this world would be if everybody was the same. As for the bullying, can you talk to your counselor there about this? Bullying is unacceptable in any circumstances, and the school should be made aware of it. Tell your parents that you appreciate their support, but you are not gay, and to back off about it. Stay strong. You are 18, so probably not much longer in school, and it gets so much better after high school. And OP responds, "Reading this made me anxious. I'm not sure if I want to know. I wouldn't call myself masculine, but I don't think I'm effeminate or anything like that. I don't dress fancy or anything. I've heard my voice recorded, and I don't have a gay voice either." And edit, "I never thought about asking my friends, but now I feel like I need to know. I'm texting my friend asking him. There must be something I do that makes everyone think I'm gay." And here is that response. Dude, are you sure you want an honest answer? Okay, here we go. The thing is, you never seem interested in girls. You never talk about them, and you never look at them. Even when you dated Sarah, not her real name, it didn't really look like you were dating. I never saw you kiss her once, and you dated for like a year. You seemed like friends who held hands once in a while. You seem way more interested in guys than girls. Like, when hot guys are around, you stare at them, and if they talk to you, you get all weird and flustered. You don't really do it at school that much anymore, but you used to. And when Sarah broke up with you, she said some stuff about that you might have made things worse. I think that's the reason some people might think you're gay, but I don't care about stuff like that, dude. If you say you're straight, I believe you, and if you were gay, that would be cool too. And OP says, "So yeah, I'm a bit shocked I wasn't aware that I did that." So am I right in thinking that your parents want to support you, but in doing that are actually affirming the bullying? Because for parents to sit you down and say that they love you no matter what, makes me think that they would genuinely have no idea that they are making it worse for you. I think you're going to have to tell them. Could you sit them down and explain to them how they are making you feel? In particular, that you feel like they are complicit with your bullying. You'll also have to tell them, for what is, I imagine, the 100th time, that you are not gay, and that their constant speculation as to your sexuality is demeaning and hurtful. It actually doesn't matter if you are or not. Constantly questioning your sexuality is incredibly invasive, even if dressed up in the guise of support. Then, give them some advice on how you would like them to support you. As in, thanks for your concern, but I'm cool. Can you do XYZ instead? So that they know more about what you want and what they can do to actually help. Hopefully, if they genuinely love and want to support you, they'll realize they've been getting it arse about. Good luck. And OP says, I don't really want to tell them about the bullying because I'm worried that they'll see it as a sign that they are in the right, thinking that I'm gay. And honestly, I'm really embarrassed about it. I try not to let it bother me, but it's been going on for so long that I'm getting really sick of it. And OP says, I think I'm being downvoted because I don't want to tell anyone about the bullying, but there is no point. Nothing will change, and it might even make it worse. Well, of course you're sick of it. It's horrible, and it's been going on for so long. But again, your parents are accidentally adding to it without realizing, and so I wonder if bringing it to their attention will bring you some comfort down the line. Is there a way that you can talk to them about it without mentioning the bullying? You could also allude to it being painful without going into why, because it should be pretty bloody obvious. The important thing is the conversation needs to happen in some form that you feel genuinely supported and can get some emotional respite from the myriad of bullcrap that you are going through otherwise. And OP says, I guess I've never sat down with them and really explained how much it bothers me. I just sort of explode and leave, and I understand how that can make it seem as if I'm actually gay. And now on to the update. My first post left me very confused. I had a hard time believing it was possible to be that in denial about my own sexuality. I honestly considered deleting my post and trying to forget about it because it made me so uncomfortable. I didn't delete it, but tried not to think about it and just focused on what I was going to do about the bullying. It didn't really work though, and a couple of days later, I was hanging out with my friend, who was the guy that I asked why everyone thought I was gay, and he asked me about it, and I sort of had a meltdown. I told him I was confused about everything, and that I wasn't sure anymore if I was straight, and that his texts and your comments had really screwed with my head. He was great though, and managed to calm me down. I felt a lot better after talking to him about it, and when I got home, I read your comments again, and this commenter's comment, considering your edit, you might want to engage in some self-reflection about who you're actually attracted to. I can completely understand why they think you are gay, and this isn't about engaging in stereotypes. This is about other people noticing signs in you of arousal and interest. You don't need to tell me these things, but think about them for yourself. What do you think about when you masturbate? Do you get aroused around girls or guys? Who are you drawn to? Where does your energy focus? Pay attention to how you feel and how your body responds when you interact with each sex. When you kissed your girlfriend, was it super exciting and physically arousing? How do you feel if you imagine kissing a girl? What if you imagine kissing a guy? To which did your body respond? Maybe both? And also, don't discount the possibility of being asexual or demisexual but homo-romantic, or possibly hetero-romantic. That could make things more difficult to figure out. The first time I read this comment, it literally made me feel sick, and the second time, it made me feel sick as well. That night, I actually took her advice though, and for the first time in my life, I actually imagined what it would be like to kiss a guy, and I'm definitely not straight. I'm not sure if I'm bi or gay, but I'm not straight. I've done a lot of reading and exploring after that night, and it's been difficult to accept it, but I feel like I've come a long way in a short time. I still think it's weird that I was that deep in denial about it though. My whole life I was 100% sure I was straight, and then now I am 100% sure I am not straight. It's weird. I told my friend about it a few days ago, and he was awesome about it. I knew he would be okay with it, but I was still nervous. I haven't told my parents yet, and I'll probably wait until I have it more figured out. I haven't decided what to do about the bullying though. I feel like it won't bother me as much anymore, and maybe if they see that I don't really care, they'll get bored of it. I just hope it doesn't get worse. I just wanted to update you guys and thank you for your advice and comments. It literally changed my life, and I'm not sure how long I would have kept living in denial if it weren't for you guys. So thank you. And now in the comments, for the record, considering your experiences with bullying, I don't find it strange at all that you didn't notice your true sexuality. Gay has been used as a slur against you, and few people want to associate themselves with a slur, even if you personally have nothing against gay people. It's as if you tried to distance yourself from the bullying by telling yourself that what they said wasn't true. That is a defense mechanism and very natural to develop in situations like yours. But good on you for being mature enough to take a long hard look at yourself and learn something new. That's a hard thing to do. And OP replies, that's a good point. I'm also really stubborn, so when the bullying started, it just made me more convinced that I was straight because I didn't want them to be right. Reading the comments in this thread has made me feel better too. Apparently it's more normal to be in denial about your sexuality than I thought. The trick with this type is, you can't tell them before they know, lol. I'm a queer person. Have had many friends I knew who were also queer people, but they didn't know yet. They eventually do, but they have an easier time when they work it out on their own time than when everyone harasses them. What an incredibly insightful and helpful answer OP's friend gave. The friend gave a gentle response that must have really helped. FYI, the OP's last post reads, multiple orgasms from bottoming. Is this possible? So we can safely assume they figured out a bit more about themselves. A generation or so ago, OP would have married a Sarah and had a probably very unsatisfactory sex life on both sides, until probably later in life, things fell apart and his whole family got shattered when he finally realized his true orientation. Thank God people are more aware of this at an earlier stage in their lives these days. That's my grandpa. 3 failed marriages, and now he finally has a boyfriend. Although it's perhaps a good thing from your perspective, as in your existence, that he didn't realize earlier. This reminds me of my parents. Literally anytime I told them there was something important I wanted to talk to them about, be it bullying or I'm feeling sick, or even when I thought about suicide, the first thing they'd say without fail every single time was, "It's okay, we know you're gay, we love you anyway," before I could even say what I was trying to talk to them about. Eventually, I realized I wasn't completely straight and thought I was bi, and when I came out, they told me I was just saying that for attention, and they knew I was really straight. Now I identify as pansexual, and no one but my wife knows that I've ever been with a man. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for cancelling my daughter's birthday and making her call her classmates to explain why? So here is the situation. My daughter Abby just turned 11 and was supposed to have a birthday party last month with the girls in her class. She's autistic and has ADHD that we haven't found the right treatment for. So she struggles to make friends, and this would have been the first non-family party that she has had. In the last few months, Abby went to 2 other birthday parties where the whole class was invited, which is why she asked to have a larger friend party this year in our backyard. Unfortunately, because of the timing, Taylor, her best friend, wouldn't be able to make it because her family was out of town. The day before the party, I was letting Abby use my phone to give her classmates the time and location information, and I overheard this exchange. The other girl says, "Is Taylor going to be there?" And Abby says, "No, she's lame and can't come." I sternly told Abby to hang up and explain herself. She tried to tell me that she wasn't serious, but I thought it was incredibly mean to call her only friend lame and felt like she was behaving horribly. She insisted that it was just a joke and wouldn't agree when I told her that Taylor would be heartbroken if she heard Abby call her lame. I felt that she didn't deserve to have a party if she couldn't cherish her friend and decided to teach her a lesson. I made her call all 12 girls that were invited, including the ones that she already called to tell the information, and explained to them that there wasn't going to be a party after all, because she was being punished for saying something rude about Taylor. She was appropriately embarrassed and cried a lot, and I think definitely learned her lesson. So I felt like this was done and dusted, but Taylor came over last weekend for a sleepover, and I talked to her mum for a bit at drop-off. She told me she heard about what happened because the other parents had been discussing my punishment and thought it was too harsh, and insinuated that I should go easier on Abby because she was a sweet and sensitive kid. I wasn't expecting this, so I brushed it off until she left, but got annoyed that the other parents are judging me for my actions when my kid did something that was not sweet or sensitive. When Taylor's mother returned to pick her daughter up, she again laid it on thick how much Taylor liked Abby and how she was glad they were friends. And I said, yep, and now Abby knows to treat her friends well and not take them for granted. It got awkward when Taylor's mum kept gushing about Abby and low-key implying that she didn't deserve to be punished. And I snapped back, well, I guess you and everyone else knows how to parent better than I do. I am still seething over this, and I want to know if my actions with Abby and with Taylor's mum were warranted, because I feel like everyone else is taking crazy pills. Now in the comments, you're the asshole, major one too, like massive. Your daughter is already struggling to fit into social situations, and her neurological disorders could be the cause of why she thinks such raw humor is acceptable. And beside the fact that you think it's inappropriate to joke like that, have you ever considered that Abby was in fact being honest, and saying that light-hearted insults is the way it is between her and Taylor? You jumped onto a conclusion that is based around your comfort and boundaries with jokes. And how is that punishment relevant to what you assume to be hurtful? Yeah, I cancelled my socially struggling daughter's first real party because I took offense on someone's behalf that wasn't even there. I truly have to say that this is the second time I've read something so obviously a-hole-like of OP on this sub, and I'm sitting here writing this with absolute disgust on how some people will lie to you by saying you were not the asshole. You humiliated your daughter, ruined her first experience being seen by everyone, and probably ruined the trust she had left in you. Just please take one look outside of your own perspective. You were so cruel. Even parents outside of your family had to jump into defense for your own daughter. I hope you read this whole thing, twice as well. And edit, I just want to say that I'm very grateful that people are on the same page as me. I truly was worried that people would defend such cruelty. It's a good day to see some humanity in this world. I'm a psychologist who works with kids with disabilities. Have you got any idea how hard it is for most kids on the spectrum to make friends and be accepted by their peers? This party was a milestone, and not only OP took it away from her, but she humiliated her as well. Honestly, if I were her child's therapist, I'd consider this a warning sign and pay attention to her behavior towards her daughter. And what's interesting is the daughter is doing better socially than the mum. She's being lame is a common good-natured dig when someone can't hang out. The mum missed this social cue by about 10,000 feet. You're the asshole. Do you have zero knowledge of kids this age? They all call each other weird names. Lame? Nope. No one would bat an eye. You miss someone's birthday party? They will kiddingly use this terminology. You went so far past the line, it's unbelievable. I called a good friend of mine lame for not being able to make it to my birthday party, almost basically the same way that that kid did. No one got offended, because clearly it was said in jest. I can't imagine being ostracized for saying it. Exactly. When I was a kid, we always said someone was lame for not coming. It was an expression that really meant, we wish you would come, but we're gonna call you lame to rag on you to divert our gushy friend feelings. And now back to the post, there is an edit. I have said in multiple DMs, but I will say here as well, that I was wrong and I am disgusted with myself. I will clear up that Abby does go to weekly therapy, but we haven't seen a psychologist or done family therapy since she was 8. I was also suspected of having ADD as a child, but my parents didn't do much to investigate after one type of medication failed to help, so I don't think about it that much and don't know if that's relevant. I sat with Abby after supper and apologized for my actions and enforced that she's a good kid and a great friend to Taylor. She started tearing up and told me that she was hurt that the other girl asked about Taylor because apparently some kids said they wouldn't go since Taylor wasn't. Abby felt guilty because while she was just joking about Taylor being lame, she was hurt that they liked Taylor and not her. I hadn't even considered this, and I'm heartbroken for her that I kicked her when she was down. She is a sweet and sensitive girl, and I'm very lucky she forgave me. I will be looking into family therapy and connecting with the school to fix this, and I told Abby she has a week to decide how and with who she wanted to celebrate a belated birthday. Thanks to everyone who advocated for my daughter when I failed her. And now onto the update. When I posted this, I did not expect for it to get more than 50 comments, so when it did, I was blown away and honestly overwhelmed. Some people called this story out for being fake, and the funny thing is that it kind of was and wasn't. I'm Abby, fake name, not Abby's mum, and the day I posted this story, I'd been thinking about some not-so-cool experiences from my childhood and was kind of ruminating on this one. This was maybe the second time I remember being traumatized by my mom, but the first one I remember all the details clearly. I was pretty sure she screwed up doing this, but all parents F up their kids sometimes, right? And I had said something mean about my friend, though I don't remember if I said Taylor sucked or was lame, so from her perspective, I deserved to be punished. The way I typed the story was exactly what happened, right down to her making me call every girl in my class. I still remember the script I had to read. Hi, blank. I'm calling to tell you that I'm not allowed to have a birthday party because I said something mean about a friend. Sorry, bye. And after every call, I put my head down on the table and wept, full snot rockets and everything, while my mom typed the next number into the phone and put it in my hand. It has been over 10 years, to keep timing vague, and I still hate my birthday and have never had a successful friend party. I do have friends, I just can't do parties. The only part of the public story that wasn't true was the updates. The catharsis I felt through people agreeing with me was great, but everyone saying schedule her another party or apologize to her right now made me a little sad because my mum literally never brought it up again. So I tried to get some sense of peace from the whole ordeal by pretending she did the right thing, and it honestly worked in the sense that I can think of that day without crying. So anyways, I posted the story seeking validation, or therapy, or at least trying to gain perspective from her side, and I'm sorry to have misled the 1.6 million people who saw this post, and the people who read it on Facebook and Instagram, I think. I was floored by the amount of people who understood me, a weird little girl they had never met, more than my own mother ever did. You understood that I was mirroring my peers, having a really hard time making friends, and hurt that no matter how hard I tried, people just didn't like me. I cried so many times writing the original post and answering comments as Abby's mum, parroting things she said back then, or things I've heard her say now when she remembers my childhood. She was twisted and abusive, no matter how much she claimed she was trying to help me. And a special sorry to the people who messaged me with long personal stories or advice. I was really moved that you would share something so raw in an attempt to get some ignorant mum to understand. I was so grateful that there were professionals out there willing to put aside time to help kids they had never met. I tried to answer so you wouldn't feel like your effort was wasted, but I felt and feel horrible about lying, and it was resting heavy on my heart. Damn my autistic need to abide to the rules. Anyways, lots of people also messaged worried about Abby's well-being, so I wanted to say I am doing fine. I did move out of my parents' house as soon as I could, went to university, and graduated with a degree in something I love. I am finally medicated for ADHD, and I'm engaged to the kindest, most understanding man who is fiercely protective of me when it comes to my mum. I still need therapy, but I promise I'm working on it, and my next attempt will not involve lying on the internet, because holy crap did this get out of control. And now in the comments, well, that's a plot twist I didn't see coming. It's good to see Abby getting the validation she deserves, and knowing she is doing better. Mums like her don't care if they're helping their kids, they just want to be right. Yeah, I remember this post, and I was just so glad that the mum saw the error of her ways. This update is half heartbreaking, but I'm glad she got out. Damn, fuck OP's mum. I don't have kids, and even I could see that. 1. OP was trying to appear cool and was just joking, like grown-ass adults do. 2. As much as OP was trying to appear to be her mum, and I bought it, anyone can read between the lines why the kids wanted to know if Taylor was going to be there. 3. That crap is borderline abuse. Also, kudos to Taylor's mum for standing up for OP. I literally call my best friends lame to their faces because we are friends and are only joking around. What a horrific situation for Abby to go through. Exactly. For someone on the spectrum or with ADHD, it can be difficult enough to fit in, especially with the kind of teasing humor NT people tend to use. This will probably affect her confidence in her humor for years to come. This is heartbreaking. OP's mum lacks compassion and understanding. OP was hurt and just said something stupid. But it could have been a joke for all her mum knew. My cousins and I are all adults. We'll boo each other for not being able to attend an event. You're going to the Bahamas instead of going bowling? Boo, you're so lame. It's a loving joke. My boyfriend keeps hanging out with a girl he has feelings for. He said he's been trying to get over her since before me, and that he thinks that if he keeps trying, it'll go away. I told him it doesn't work like that, especially if we've already been dating for 10 years, and he was already trying to drop his feelings for her before he met me. I feel like he's lying, and he truly just wants to keep his connection to her. He left to go hang out with her at 9, and now it's almost 4 in the morning for me. He told me it wouldn't come to this, and he wouldn't be out this long. He doesn't have a phone, so if I want to message him, I'd basically have to message her. He also refused to let me come along, even though her and I get along amazingly. She has made it clear she is not interested and already has a girlfriend. I've started packing my things because he hypothetically asked me what would happen if he didn't come home tonight before he went out. I don't feel that there is anything left for me here. I made it clear that I don't think what he's doing is good for our relationship, but he went anyway. All he can ever say is that it's not his intention to hurt me. I keep having to remind him that the intent doesn't matter if you knew the outcome would be hurting me. I need some help, support, and an exit plan. And now in the comments, he still thinks he has a chance with her, but is stringing you along as a backup. The second she actually wants to go out with him, he will flat out dump you on the spot. You are better leaving him because this isn't a healthy relationship. And OP replies, this is exactly what I've been thinking about. It's all based on her. If she moves, he will, regardless of what we've built together. Yes, you have no future with him because he doesn't want you. Sorry to say. Until he can get his head out of his ass and realize she doesn't want him, he can't have healthy relationships. And OP says, I mentioned that to him as well. That this will continuously be a cycle unless he chooses to break it himself. All he cares about is staying close to her, even if it means they can only be friends. Welp, back to packing. Did you say 10 years? As in you have been dating for 10 years and he still has a thing for her? No, ma'am. You are an absolute saint for having the patience to deal with this for as long as you have. You have tried your best, done your due diligence, and if he still doesn't get it, he needs to get gone. Why the hell are you packing your things to leave the house that you pay for? Avid gamer without a solid income stream enough to pay for internet? Nope. You should be packing his things. Pile it up and leave it all in the living room for him to see when he gets home, with a nice note on top saying, I can't force you to stay, so now you are free. I wish you happiness and to live your best life, best wishes. Then lock yourself in your bedroom and let him figure it out. Your space is exactly that. Yours. He is the one who screwed it up. He is the one to disrespect your feelings and your relationship, and he is the one that needs to figure out where he is going to go and live. Stop being his carpet. If you are leaving because you feel guilty he doesn't have a place to stay, stop. That's just another concession on your part. If he can't take care of himself or his life and obligations, that's entirely on him, and he needs to grow up. I'm sorry you've wasted your time on this guy. You honestly sound like a wonderful, caring, and supportive girlfriend. But it's time to take off the kid gloves and make a stand. You aren't going to force him to stay, but girl, you absolutely should force him to leave. Someone better will come along, and you absolutely deserve better. Good luck." And OP replies, "Sadly, we are renting under his family. I don't know how they would feel about that, although packing his things would be much easier. Lol, I hate that I've wasted my time too. Literally everything of what you said is very similar to the conversation I tried to have with him before he left. He just kept pushing that he wasn't trying to hurt me, and that's not what it's about, but of course he can never say. Yes, 10 years, and I am very hurt over it. I put my entire being into this boy, and all I got was a lesson in never letting someone take away my independence again. I was completely independent before meeting him. He had me quit my job and move in. The rest should have been good history, but sadly I'm here. He keeps saying he loves me over and over, and then walks out the door to hang out with a girl that he has feelings for 6+ hours. You can ask yourself one question, and probably figure out what you should do here. If the next time they hang out, she professes her love for him and asks him to sleep with her right now and be with her from now on, what do you think he would do? If you answer that question, and you don't have to answer it here, you probably have the answer to what you should do next without second-guessing yourself. And OP replies, "I was afraid of that, but it is what it is. He told me I could force him to stay, but had I done that, I would have been stuck with him while he was sulked, wishing and crying about how he wants to hang out with her. He has done it many times, even recently." The more direct advice is that he sounds like an ass. You don't want to live second fiddle to some woman he wants a relationship with, and secondly, isn't even interested in a relationship with him, which is even worse for him. Maybe after this blows over, you and this girl can be friends, since you guys are buds anyway. Maybe she doesn't like this crap that he's doing any more than you do. If she's a decent person, she probably hates the idea that he's doing this to you. And now, on to the update. So, I went to sleep and woke up to him cuddling me, which was very upsetting, especially after the night that I've had. He came home around 5 AM, a time he told me was only hypothetical and wouldn't really happen. We had a talk where I made it very clear that if this is how he loves me, then it's not the love I want anymore. He didn't want to tell me anything at all, and just kept saying, "I don't know," to every question I asked him. But if the situation was swapped, he would need every detail. Matter of fact, I wouldn't have even been able to go. I packed the bulk of my belongings and have hidden them in easy-to-grab places. I've got 4 days left of my college course before I take my certification exam. I'm very glad he stayed out all night, because I have never felt this much love for myself since before meeting him. He knocked me down so many pegs that I forgot how much I was actually worth and was willingly taking scraps of love. This isn't even the worst that he's done, and we should have been over a long time ago. I hate that I'm just fully realizing it now, but I'm glad I did it at all. It hurts, but not as bad as staying as someone's second choice. He probably won't even remember the conversation, as he never does, but I'm done explaining it over and over again. The plan is to stick it out until the end of the week, take my certification exam, pack up all my stuff, and leave in the middle of the night. My sister lives in another city and already has a place for me to stay. Luckily, my mother is in town as well and plans on staying until I'm ready. I'm letting him keep his gifts, because once I'm gone, he won't have internet until he gets it himself. It's getting turned off and moved to where I'm going. I will also be taking his cell phone off my contract. I really didn't understand how much I pay for his life until I started disconnecting and removing everything a piece at a time. I just did it because I love him and wanted him to be taken care of. The time he spent gone last night was everything I needed to get my life together. He knows the best ways to guilt trip me, especially after going to counseling. I'm not going to keep doing this fight, and I'm the only one actually making progress. I have held him up and backed him up on so many things in his life, I never expected to get to this point. Thank you to everyone who helped talk things out with me. I was so distraught that I couldn't even think or move. Definitely made it easier to keep pushing on. Everything is packed, but my little library and PC set up. I don't even think he noticed when he came back, and I'm sure he'll be asleep all day. Doing a once-over and finishing packing, my mother will be back later on to pick a few things up at a time under the premise of just wanting to see her daughter. Mum is with the plan, and I am loving it. For those of you who believe that we could have worked things out, we could have, but that takes the both of us being willing to do that, not just me. This isn't even everything, my guys. I know it may feel like attack on men to you, but if I told you everything, you wouldn't feel that way. Trust me. I wanted it to work out too, but he has made it very clear that he would drop me if it meant keeping her, even as just a friend. If for any reason she told him they can't be friends because of me, I would be a hot potato, dropped and on the floor, guts everywhere. Just kidding, but you get the picture. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I feel like I'm finally about to get everything that I've ever wanted and needed, and I hope you do too. And now in the comments, quote, he knows the best ways to guilt trip me, especially after going to counseling. This is why it's not advised to go to counseling with your abuser, which, make no mistake, he is. I'm proud of you, and you should be excited for your future. Pour all of your love into yourself because you deserve it. Also, those gifts sound like he's just a common thief committing credit card fraud. I hope you realize you are way too good for this creep. Do you think you could elaborate on why it's bad to go to counseling with an abuser? I've heard that often, but I've always had trouble understanding why. With a therapist to act as a mediator, surely it would be more helpful than facing the abuser alone. I know there must be details I'm missing, hence my confusion. Because, as OP notes, it gives them tools to manipulate you and the therapist. I'm on mobile, but if you Google therapy with your abuser, there are articles that go more in depth as to why it is a very bad idea. It basically teaches them new tricks to use against you. They can also manipulate some therapists. Abusers don't go to couples counseling and admit they are wrong, they continue to lie and gaslight. If you are being abused, go to individual counseling. Most abusers never stop, but some can benefit from individual therapy too. The creep factor amplified for me when OP stated the woman already had a girlfriend, and yet still her ex-boyfriend kept trying. Seriously? And then to see it had been 10 years of this man-child abusing their relationship, stringing OP along as a backup cash cow, fuck that dude. Like, what a man. He can be a pain to 3 women at once. Seriously, the woman he is after told him and OP she is not interested and has a girlfriend. She's not even available. Those guys are the worst. The I will persist, talk crap about how much better I am than their current partner, and when their relationship, that I don't acknowledge, fails, they will remember how much I did for them. Romantic movie style creeping. He's as much of an ass to the woman he's after, and her girlfriend, as he was to his ex. He ignores her wishes and boundaries as well. Our next post is titled, "Is this a scam, or is this person genuinely trying to give me closure on my brother?" So, me and my brother are around the same age of 26, and I'm in Mississippi. He had moved out one day at the age of 22, and quite literally disappeared. He never would answer phone calls, text back, and I think his phone number was changed from what it seemed like. We had went 10 years without knowing where he went, or what had happened to him. Obviously it made me, his sister, and our mum very upset. At times we considered the possibility that he died and we won't ever see him again, and that sucked. Literally nobody was ever able to find him or find a way to contact him. One day, I get a random call from out of the state, and I didn't think anything of it. I get these kinds of phone calls a lot, so I just ignored it. I got a voicemail and I figured I'd listen to it. Basically, it was this random girl saying, "Hey, OP, I'd imagine you'd want to know what happened to your brother, right? It's extremely important, so whenever you have the chance, please call back." I obviously got extremely worried, so I called her back instantly. I was more wanting to know what happened to my brother, so I just asked her a bunch of questions, such as if I'll ever be able to see him again, and how she even knew me to begin with. She didn't even answer, and got really defensive, saying, "We need to schedule a time to meet in person, anywhere you feel comfortable. Trust me, please, when I say it will all come together and I will answer everything. whenever I asked her who she was and how she knew my brother and I. I even asked her to send pictures of herself and asked if we could video call so at least I know I'm talking to a real person and not trying to have someone rob me and using my missing brother as leverage or something. She sent some pictures and said she was more than happy to video call, gave me her Skype, and we had roughly the same convo over video call when we first talked. She just kept insisting we meet in person, saying that she would be driving from her state to come here. I literally just asked, "Will my brother be with you?" And she just said, "It's complicated." Like, WTF does that mean? This person is so vague. Like, is this a scam? I know sometimes robbing scams use girls or some other lure. I just don't know if I should trust them. From what people have said in the post before it got removed, it makes me feel like I should meet them, but I'm wary about if this could be a scam, as I always want to be extra safe. Now in the comments, it's good to hold on to a certain level of skepticism, but nothing here screams scam. Meet somewhere public and walk away as soon as they ask for money. And absolutely understand that just because you met at a busy Starbucks or the frickin' police station, they can still follow you home. Don't meet them if it gets too dark. It'll make it harder to notice a car tailing you, and don't drive straight home after meeting them. Solid advice. If you are really worried, I would say to have a friend pick you up and drop you off somewhere else, or call an Uber, so they don't know what you drive, and have them pick you up and drop you off at a mall. You can park at the mall and take Uber or your friend to go meet them and then have them drop you back off at the mall at the opposite end of where you parked. Walk inside only to the side where you were parked at. There aren't really legal aspects to this, but generally, this doesn't seem like a scam to me. If she starts asking for money for information, sure, that sounds like a scam, but it doesn't seem like that has happened so far. It could be that this is a difficult conversation and they want to do it in person. It could be that they know where your brother is and it's not good. Like he's in jail, he's in hiding, he's in the hospital, he passed away. It could be that she has a connection to your brother, like she has his kid, etc. Or it could be, as someone above pointed out, that she is your brother who transitioned over 4 years and wants to reconnect in person. I would think you could tell on Skype, but maybe not if it's been that long. There are lots of reasons to want to talk in person. Just have your guard up about anything scammy, mostly asking for money. Otherwise, there's generally nothing to worry about, simply meeting someone in person in a public place. And now, on to the update. Sorry it took so long. Lately everything has been very exhausting. I figured I'd take a break and just mentally unwind, but I also figured I'd post an update for people. First things first, yes, we are twins, and yes, this is a throwaway, because I'm not going to be posting any identifying information for me or anybody else. Anyways, here's what happened. It may be long, but whatever. Well, that was an experience. We met up at a local Walmart and sat in one of the mini restaurants that they have. I went there alone, but I was oddly at ease and no longer worried, especially since this person was so open and said that any place was fine. I did make sure I went early so I could just check the people who were coming in. So I sit down at a table, text that person that I'm there at the scheduled time and place, and what I'm wearing and all that, and I just wait. It felt like I was waiting forever. They texted me saying they might be a bit late due to traffic according to their GPS. I think I closed my eyes and just rested for a bit. I don't know, I was so drained. Eventually, I opened my eyes to someone saying, "Hey, you're so-and-so, right?" And I reply with, "Yes." They sit down in front of me, and I could tell they were about to say something, but I instantly was just like, "Why didn't you tell me?" At this point, I figured this person really was my sibling like y'all said. It made sense. I had completely forgotten about this, but they once told me when they were an early teenager that they wished they were a girl. But when I remembered that, it genuinely did just click, and I just intuitively felt a sense of ease while I sat there, resting, gathering my thoughts. At first, she just sat there for a bit and she was like, "What do you mean?" And I just simply was like, "You're my sister, aren't you?" I went on to add, "You really have been transgender this whole time. Why didn't you tell anybody?" She started trying to hold back her tears, but I could tell she was about to cry. At this point, I just felt mostly at ease, and I offered to get up and go for a walk around the area. She accepted, and we started walking out the store and around. I offered to walk to a nearby park or a library, but we just kind of started walking in silence for a while. Anyway, I eventually broke the silence and asked her again, and she just said she was ashamed and hated that she was trans. She said she didn't want to be seen going through the awkward transition phase, and she said she couldn't explain why, but she just felt more comfortable going away. She kept saying she hated being trans, but whenever I asked her why, she just said she didn't know. She said she felt especially conflicted because she and I didn't have such a good upbringing, and she always wonders if the reason she felt that way about herself was to distance herself from her past. The whole walk around the store, she was just crying and holding on to me. She said over and over how she hated that she was trans. She told me she would obsess over passing, which she explained to me, because she felt so ashamed and disgusted with herself. She said she was embarrassed to mention the amount of money it cost to transform herself in any way possible. I kept asking her why she thought to be embarrassed, and she just said she wasn't sure if she was mentally ill or not. She just said that the urge to do those things was as compulsive and necessary to scratch an itch, so she did it regardless. Keep in mind, I've never really been into the LGBT community at all. Me and my family are pretty conservative, and while we aren't going to go around murdering transgender people, we just weren't so keen on it. I'll admit that if she had came out to me earlier before, I would have probably dismissed it. But right now, I look at this person and just see a girl, and no matter what I do, intuitively, that's what I see. I can't help but not say what they are, even though they weren't born that way. It was very conflicting because this was my brother, but in every single damn way that I could tell, this was a girl, and it's hard to call someone a he when they are so girl. Anyway, I hugged her, and we walked back to the restaurant and get something to eat, and I offered to pay for her meal too, and she nodded. We have small talk from then on, and she randomly interrupts with, "So I am your sister, right?" And those thoughts came back. I just couldn't help but say, of course, because that's all I saw. I decided it'd be fun to give my mum a call with her, and it didn't go so well. My mother went berserk and was talking about how she messed up raising children. We basically hung up before it got too loud and awkward in there. I would have called our dad, but we never talked to him because of how horrible he was. At this point, my sister just kind of shrugged and said, "That's what I mean. Maybe I'm this way because of my upbringing. Either way, I feel better now." While we were eating, I could definitely tell that it was my sibling. Just the small things you notice, like how they chew, or how they move, or their overall way of how they just go. We started making small talk again, and I thought back to my earlier thought about me being maybe against it, and I kind of realized now that this person was just normal. They didn't seem so mentally ill as they said they were. I mean, they just seemed so normal. I had even made some random little joke, and she just giggled. But I've never seen my sibling giggle in such a pure and innocent way before. They were just very reclusive and quiet before then, but while we were talking, and when the mood was lifted, that's the first time I've seen them smile in, well, I don't even know. And it was like a genuine smile. Just a normal, genuine smile, and that really made me feel something that I couldn't explain. It just was odd. I've never really talked to a trans person before, and I was just surprised at how normal they were, as horrible as that may sound. There is such a big stigma towards it that I was expecting a lot worse than all that. We were eventually having a really good convo, but it got to the point where I needed to go, and I stayed a bit longer already. I had asked her where the hell she was staying though. She said she was staying with a friend who lived a couple of states away, and she was okay. We were walking out, and she just clinged to me. I figured she was just feeling some sort of way, so I just told her that it's okay that she's transgender, and before I could even finish my sentence, she just looked at me and just said something along the lines of, "I appreciate that, but please, you know I hate being trans. Don't call me that. I went through hell trying to distance myself from being trans, and I want nothing to do with that community. I feel so much shame and guilt. I said, okay, sorry, you're right. You're a girl. I know you are. She said thanks, and we just hugged for a long time. Eventually, I got the courage to let go, and I just had to force myself to walk off to my car, drive to my place, and sleep. I was feeling exhausted again, but in a content way. I texted my sister goodnight, and I realized I didn't even get her name through the whole catching up thing. Her name is Layla. Yay! So I said, "Good night, Layla." And now we talk daily because I'll be damned if I let this connection fade again. And now in the comments, I kind of get just wanting to be a girl and not focus on being trans as an identity, but the level of self-loathing isn't healthy at all. The parents messed her up and I hope she gets therapy. Not all trans folk need to be out and proud, but hating yourself and hating the word as a descriptor is definitely not mentally healthy. I grew up religious and definitely went through a period of self-loathing and grieving as I came to terms with being a lesbian. For the longest time, I hated the word lesbian, but could tolerate calling myself gay. I think I associated the word lesbian with pornos and biker chicks in leathers. Years later, it is much better. All the stigmas that exist externally in society are 10 times worse internally, but everyone comes around eventually. I'm feeling so bad for OP and Layla, who obviously have deep issues due to their upbringing. Layla probably did the right thing moving away though, cutting herself off from her unaccepting parents, and OP also admits it was easier for her to accept Layla's transition because she waited until it was complete to contact her again. Her sister needs so much therapy. Her self-loathing is scary to me. To go through everything to transition and still to hate oneself is terrifying. I hope it's more that she just wants to be a girl and not a trans girl, you know? Like, it's such a loaded thing, and she just wants to exist without having her identity be more than what it is. I completely get that, and I can't fault anyone for feeling that way. Sometimes people aren't given a choice, and who they are is so wrapped up in a political identity that it's almost inescapable. She is able to literally be a woman. So why should she have to put any qualifiers around that? She's a woman, full stop. Disliking or distancing herself from the trans label might not be as unhealthy as people think, and the trans community isn't a paragon of health either. There is a lot of self-loathing and toxicity there too, like probably any community to be honest. I am so glad that these two are connecting again and have found each other. But it's so sad to read how the way that they've been raised has poisoned them both against the LGBT community. Like OP said, they are just normal people living their lives, but they both seem to expect a certain kind of person when they think of a trans or LGBT individual. I'm sad that their natural reaction towards it is hatred and disapproval when OP freely admits that she has never been around LGBT spaces and so easily accepts her sister. Alright, and that's where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.